Hold the pop's hands down. Genevieve Sterling's voice was silk wrapped around the blade. She raised the jagged steak knife above the 10-year-old Omega boy, his small body trembling so hard his teeth rattled. Across the room, Silas Norton sat with a glass of red wine at his lips, watching. Unhurried, unbothered, letting the child weep. For 10 years, Nora had been the pack's invisible thing, the girl who scrubbed floors and swallowed pain and made herself small enough to disappear. She had survived by becoming nothing. Then the blade began its descent toward the boy's fingers. The dormant think inside her did not stir. It did not flicker. It detonated. One word, barely above a whisper. Yet it carried the weight of a collapsing mountain, ozone thick, bone deep, absolute. 50 elite warriors dropped to their knees before they understood why. Before sunrise, the men who had enslaved her would bow at her feet. But that was still hours away. Tonight, submission was all she had ever known. To the human world, Black Ridge Timber Holdings was a success story. A booming Pacific Northwest logging empire carved into the dark spine of the Oregon wilderness, worth hundreds of millions, respected and feared in equal measure. To the werewolves who answered to it, it was Silas Norton's throne. Silas was an alpha whose cruelty ran as deep as his fortune. He moved through the world with the absolute confidence of a man who had never once been told no and had no intention of starting now. His pack operated on fear, his estate operated on silence, and Nora Hastings operated as something less than either. She was 22 years old. Her hands looked 40, calloused, cracked at the knuckles, roughened by a decade of bleach and boiling water, and flaws that were never clean enough. Those hands told the story her face had learned to hide. 10 years prior, her parents, Arthur and Madeline Hastings, had died in a border skirmish that the pack records listed as unexplained, and the pack members refused to discuss. No living relatives came forward to claim her. Pack law was clear. An unclaimed orphan became a ward of the Alpha. Ward. The word implied care. What it meant in practice was indentured servitude without the dignity of a contract. Because Nora had never shifted, because her wolf had never clawed its way to the surface, the pack physician, Dr. Harrison Gable, had made it official. He'd stood before Silas with his clipboard and his clinical detachment and delivered his verdict in the flat tone of a man describing livestock. Quote 2. A pause, a note scratched onto the page. Quote 3. So into the kitchens she went. Under Mrs. Beatrice Higgins's heavy hand, Nora learned the particular misery of commercial-grade bleach, worked into tile grout until your knuckles split. She learned to polish antique silver until the spoons threw her own hollow reflection back at her. She learned, above all else, to be invisible. Dr. Gable was wrong. Nora was not stagnant. She was a wildfire with its exits sealed. She was on her knees in the grand hallway when it hit her, as it always did, without warning and without mercy. Her hands moved steadily over the oak floorboards, buffing them to a mirror shine ahead of the evening's Equinox summit. Every Alpha delegation in the region would walk these halls tonight. The floors had to be flawless. Then the heat erupted in her chest. Nora dropped the rug, squeezed her eyes shut. A phantom set of claws raked the inside of her ribcage. Slow, deliberate, furious. Not the faint, desperate stirring of a weak omega struggling toward the surface. Something else entirely. A crushing, suffocating pressure that drove her blood temperature past reason. A beast at the bars of its cage, slamming its full weight against the door. She had endured these internal earthquakes for years, dismissed them as the phantom suffering of a broken girl's body turning against itself. She had learned to swallow the fire, push the beast back down into the dark, keep it buried. "Did I tell you to stop working, Matt?" The voice cut through the hallway like a blade finding a gap in armor. Nora opened her eyes and lowered her chin, the practiced reflex of a decade's conditioning. A pair of crimson-soled heels entered her peripheral vision, Christian Louboutin. She knew them by sound before she saw them. Genevieve Sterling. Silas's chosen mate wore her arrogance the way other women wore jewelry, deliberately, extravagantly, and as a statement of dominance. The daughter of a wealthy East Coast alpha, she had arrived at Blackridge with an attitude of profound disappointment in everything the West Coast had produced. She reserved a particular, almost personal contempt for Nora.
I apologize, Miss Sterling. Nora's voice carried nothing. No edge, no heat, no tremor. She retrieved the polishing rag. __quote _6 _. Genevieve crouched, not out of kindness, out of the desire to be closer when she struck. Her perfume hit first. Heavy jasmine layered over something sharp and electric, flooding the corridor and overwhelming every other scent. Quote 7. Her voice dropped to something that was almost a whisper, and was worse for it. Quote 8. A pause. Quote 9. Quote 10. Nora scrubbed harder at the floorboards. The motion hid the sudden violent tremor working its way through her hands. The heat in her chest surged, hotter than before, angrier, pressing against the walls she had spent years reinforcing. Her vision blurred at the edges. The polished oak grain beneath her hands tinted faintly, unmistakably, red. Quote 11. The word was silent, aimed inward, urgent. Quote 12. Genevieve let out a sharp, then drove her heel straight into the bucket of soapy water. It toppled. Dirty grey liquid surged across the freshly polished wood, soaking through the knees of Nora's threadbare servant uniform. Do it again, and if it isn't perfect, I'll have Silas lock you in the root cellar for the rest of the week. Her heels cracked down the corridor like gunshots. Nora sat back on her heels, watching the puddle spread. Something stirred deep in her chest. A low, guttural vibration climbed her throat. Not a whimper, a growl. She slapped a wet soapy hand over her mouth, heart hammering. Omegas didn't growl. Omegas didn't feel a white-hot compulsion to tear out a superior wolf's throat. She squeezed her eyes shut, breathing hard, and shut the heat down, burying it beneath a decade of trauma and trained obedience. Her fingers found the mop handle. Survival. That was the only word that mattered. She just had to endure tonight's summit. But as she dragged the mop through dirty water, something gnawed at her. The cage inside her mind, the one she'd built brick by brick since childhood, was corroding, rusting through, and the lock holding it shut was one hard breath away from shattering. Headlights sliced through the thick Pacific Northwest fog, throwing pale beams across the grand wrought-iron gates of the Norton estate. Inside the kitchen, chaos reigned. Mrs. Beatrice Higgins barked orders with a face gone crimson, hands orchestrating the plating of roasted venison like a general directing a siege. Nora stood near the swinging doors. A tray of crystal water goblets rested on her fingertips, perfectly balanced, perfectly still. The frantic energy swirling through the kitchen couldn't touch her. That agonizing heat from the afternoon had receded into something else entirely. A low, electric hum beneath her skin. The kind of dense, breathless stillness that settles over the world right before a massive storm breaks. "They're sitting down," whispered Toby Richards, a terrified 10-year-old Omega boy recently dragged into kitchen service after his mother fell sick. His small hands trembled around a basket of warm artisan bread. "Mrs. Higgins, Alpha Norton already looks angry. He wants the first course." "Then move, move, move!" Beatrice waved them forward. "Nora, eyes on the table, pour the water, step back and do not speak. Toby, follow her lead. You drop a single crumb of that bread, I'll have your hide." Nora pressed through the heavy oak doors and stepped into the dining room. The space was extravagant. A long mahogany table gleamed beneath a massive crystal chandelier. At its head
sat Silas Norton, broad shoulders straining through a tailored Armani suit, his oppressive alpha aura rolling off him in deliberate, suffocating waves, designed to crush. Beside him, Genevieve perched in a deep emerald gown, looking regal, looking smug. But Nora's attention caught on the opposite end of the table, snagged there like cloth on a nail. Liam Blackwood, alpha of the neighboring Silver Pines pack, where Silas projected dominance like a bludgeon, blunt, constant, exhausting, Liam's power was something else entirely, a quiet, suffocating ocean. He was lean and ruggedly handsome, wearing a simple charcoal button-down that made Silas's corporate armor look absurd. His beta, Caleb Foster, sat at his right. Nora approached the table to pour water, and the moment she drew close, something shifted. The hum beneath her skin spiked hard, vibrating in strange, precise harmony with the air surrounding Liam. She kept her gaze fixed on the tablecloth, moved with practiced, silent grace. When she reached his side, she tilted the crystal pitcher. Ice-cold water filled his goblet. Liam stopped talking mid-sentence. His head turned. Slowly. Those sharp, storm-gray eyes locked onto her wrist. His nostrils flared. Subtle, nearly invisible. Nora's hand froze for a fraction of a heartbeat. Every other wolf in this house looked straight through her. Their senses slid past her muted, scentless presence, like she was furniture. But Liam wasn't looking through her. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't decode. Shock. Intense, burning curiosity. And something deeper, something that made the hum beneath her skin scream. Is there a problem with the water, Alpha Blackwood? Genevieve's voice cut in, dripping with manufactured sweetness. Her eyes threw daggers at Nora. __, quote, _19 __. Liam answered, smooth and unhurried. His gaze held Nora 1 second longer, then slid back to Silas. Silas said, leaning back in his chair with a satisfied grin. Nora released a breath she didn't know she'd been trapping behind her teeth. She pulled back fast, slipping into the shadows along the wall, where servants were meant to stand, and disappear. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Why had Liam stared at her that way? What scent had reached him? The dinner crawled forward at a merciless pace. Veiled threats and corporate posturing filled every exchange. Politics wrapped in pleasantries. Nora watched from her place against the wall, eyes sweeping the room. Toby was moving toward Genevieve's side of the table. A silver gravy boat trembled in his small hands. The crushing auras of 2 dominant alphas pressed down on the room, far too much for an undeveloped omega senses. Nora begged inside her own skull. Toby reached Genevieve's chair. He lifted the heavy silver boat, but as he tilted it, Genevieve twisted suddenly, laughing at something Silas said. Her elbow caught Toby's wrist. The boat slipped. A wave of hot, dark brown gravy splashed directly onto the lap of Genevieve's custom emerald gown. Every sound in the dining room died at once. Total, suffocating silence. Toby dropped the silver boat onto the carpet with a muffled thud. He crumbled to his knees instantly, both hands pressed flat against the back of his neck, the deepest posture of wolf submission, tears streaming down his face in pure animal terror. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Luna. Please, I didn't mean to. Genevieve rose from her chair slowly. She stared down at a dark stain spreading across her dress. Her features contorted into something barely human, pure, unfiltered rage. You filthy, useless little rat. Genevieve. Control yourself, Silas muttered, though disgust twisted his own expression. He turned toward his guards. Take the boy outside. The kennels. 1 week. No food. No! Toby screamed into the carpet, his sobs shaking his entire frame. Please, Alpha! I'm sorry. Wait, Genevieve hissed. She lifted one hand, stepped around the edge of the table, loomed over the shaking 10-year-old like a shadow with teeth. The kennels are too generous. An omega learns their place through pain. Hold his hands out. Two massive pack enforcers moved forward. They seized Toby by both arms, dragged him upright, and forced his small palms flat against the surface of the dining table.
Genevieve lifted a heavy serrated steak knife. "A ruined dress costs thousands," she said, her voice utterly cold. "A ruined hand costs nothing." Liam Blackwood leaned forward in his seat, jaw locked tight. "Silas, he's a child." "This is extreme, even for a border dispute negotiation." "He is my pack's property, Liam." Silas's eyes flashed a dangerous amber. __quote _44 __. Genevieve raised the knife higher. Toby released a sound that wasn't a scream. It was the helpless, broken cry of something small being crushed. In the shadows, the rusted lock finally shattered. Nora didn't think. She didn't calculate. A decade of suppression, years of silent cruelty, the constant desperate need to stay invisible, all of it evaporated in one blinding flash of white-hot fury. The beast ripped through its cage. "Stop!" Not shouted, spoken softly. But the moment that single syllable left Nora's lips, it carried more than sound. It carried physical, crushing weight. An explosion of pure, undiluted pheromones erupted from her body. Not the sweet, pliant scent of an omega. This was lightning-striking ancient pine, sharp, ozone-heavy, overwhelmingly dominant. The shockwave detonated through the room. Both massive enforcers holding Toby collapsed instantly, knees cracking against the floorboards as the raw pressure of the command drove them into forced submission. They choked for air, unable to raise their heads. Genevieve dropped the knife. She stumbled backward, hands clawing at her own throat as though the air itself had thickened around her windpipe. Even Silas, the proud, arrogant alpha of the Black Ridge Pack, visibly flinched. His fingers clamped around the arms of his chair so hard the wood splintered beneath them. Every head in the room snapped toward the shadows. Nora stepped forward, into the chandelier light. Her faded servant's uniform looked obscene against the raw majesty of power pouring off her body. Her eyes, once dull and lifeless brown, now blazed a brilliant, terrifying, luminescent gold. The unmistakable mark of a true alpha bloodline. Liam Blackwood rose slowly from his chair. The crushing weight pressing down on the room did not touch him. Awe, deep and undeniable, spread across his face. "Who?" Silas choked the word out, fighting the heavy air, staring at the servant girl he had tormented for 10 years. "What are you?" Nora planted herself between the shaking boy and the alphas. Those golden eyes found Silas and held him. The masquerade was finished. Silence crushed the dining room. Thick, suffocating, total. The crystal chandelier overhead seemed to lose its brilliance, outshone by the luminous gold blazing from Nora's gaze. For a decade, she had haunted these halls like a spectre, a fixture of the Norton estate, noticed less than the wallpaper. Now she was the only thing in the room that existed. Silas Norton broke the silence first. His amber eyes, always burning with unshakable arrogance, had gone wide. Terror and furious denial fought for control of his face. His knuckles whitened around the mahogany table's edge. He forced himself upright against the sheer crushing weight of Nora's aura. Quote 48__, Silas roared. But the boom was gone from his voice. It came out thin, strained. Cracking under pressure he'd never been built to withstand. "You are a defective." Dr. Gable confirmed it. "You are a useless, barren omega." "Dr. Gable is a liar, collecting your coin, Silas." Liam Blackwood cut in. The Silver Pines alpha rose from the table with fluid, predatory grace. Each step repositioned him, subtle, deliberate,
between Nora and the enforcers already steering to recover. Liam's storm grey eyes never left her. Reverence lived in that gaze. And awe. __quote__52. ___ Genevieve Sterling scrambled backward. Her emerald gown snagged on the overturned chair leg. She hit the floor with a graceless shriek, fingers clawing at her own throat. __quote_53___. Nora didn't spare the woman a glance, not a flicker. The creature who had tormented her for 10 years earned nothing, not even acknowledgement. Her focus stayed locked on Silas. The inferno that had raged inside her chest for years. It had never been a cage. She understood that now. It was a reservoir, boundless, molten. Power flooded her veins like a river breaking through a dam. Every instinct she'd buried, every impulse she'd strangled into silence, all of it roaring at once. Dominate, protect the innocent, tear down the false king. Slowly, Nora dropped her gaze to the boy at her feet. Toby had curled into a tight ball, trembling so hard his teeth chattered. But the instant Nora laid a calloused, gentle hand on his shoulder, the shaking stopped. Her power coiled around him like armor, shielding him from the suffocating pressure filling the room. "Stand up, Toby." Her voice had changed. Gone was the raspy, timid whisper of a servant girl. What replaced it was something melodic, layered, a resonant, subsonic frequency threaded beneath every syllable, demanding obedience without a trace of cruelty. Toby lifted his face. Tear tracks glistened in the golden light pouring from her eyes. He scrambled upright and pressed himself behind her faded cotton skirt. Silas bared his teeth. His canines punched downward, lengthening as the wolf clawed toward the surface. "Guards, subdue her. She is a rogue threat to this pack." The two enforcers still lay gasping against the floor. They hesitated. Biology screamed one command, while their alpha barked another. To attack a true alpha, a mythic tier wolf whose lineage traced to the original forest kings, was biological suicide. Every cell in their bodies knew it. But Silas's wrath was closer, more familiar, more immediate. They growled, pushed themselves off the oak floorboards. Before either man completed a single step, Caleb Foster materialized from the shadows beside the doorway. 2 strikes, brutally efficient. Both enforcers crashed through a glass display cabinet. Antique porcelain exploded across the room in a rain of shattered heirlooms. __quote_56___. Liam's warning cut through the chaos. His own aura erupted at last. Cold, rushing. A winter storm unleashed, and it wove seamlessly into Nora's heavy ozone scent. The combination hit every wolf in the room like a drug, a harmonious duet of raw power that made the Norton estate's very foundations groan beneath their feet. "She belongs to Black Ridge," Silas snarled. He ripped his suit jacket free. Dark fur erupted along his forearms as muscles swelled and twisted. "Her father was weak, and she is weak. She is my property." Arthur Hastings was not weak. Liam's voice dripped with venom. Each word landed like a blade. __quote_62__. Nora's breath seized. Those words cut straight through the inferno raging inside her skull. Murdered. Silas hadn't merely enslaved her. He had butchered her parents to seize their crown. He had bribed Dr. Gable to keep her chemically leashed, feeding her low doses of liquid wolfsbane through her kitchen meals, suppressing her biology, trapping her in an omega state for a decade. That revelation severed the final chain holding her back. A guttural, inhuman roar erupted from Nora's throat. Crystal goblets exploded across the table. The windows fractured in jagged webs. Silas launched himself forward, claws fully extended, driving straight for her heart. He never reached it. Nora didn't shift. She simply raised one hand and unleashed a concentrated wall of dominance. It struck Silas like a locomotive. The false alpha flew backward, crashing over the heavy mahogany table, slamming into the far wall with a wet, sickening crunch. He crumpled into a heap of splintered wood and spilled gravy, gasping, broken, his wolf utterly flattened beneath the crushing weight of her bloodline. Nora's golden eyes swept the room like a blade. Genevieve sobbed in the corner. The remaining pack guards stood frozen, paralyzed by raw terror. Toby comes with me. Anyone who follows will not receive this much mercy a second time. Liam stepped to her side, his arm hovering protectively behind her back. We go now to Silver Pines. Nora nodded once. She walked out of that grand dining room without a backward glance. 10 years of dust, abuse, and silence left on the floor behind her. She was a servant no more.
Sanctuary revealed itself as a sprawling, heavily fortified compound buried deep within the Deschutes National Forest. Silver Pines territory bore no resemblance to Black Ridge's ostentatious wealth. Here, massive log cabins melted into ancient timberland. The air hummed with something Nora had almost forgotten existed: genuine community, safety. For 3 brutal days, Nora rested. Breaking a decade of chemical suppression extracted a staggering physical toll. Dr. Sarah Jenkins, Liam's pack physician, confirmed the horrifying truth. Nora's system had been deliberately saturated with synthetic wolfsbane, engineered with precision to stunt her biology without killing her. The Equinox Summit and Silas's savage threat against young Toby had triggered a desperate biological override. Her body burned through years of embedded toxins in a single, incandescent burst of raw energy. Liam seldom left her side through the grueling recovery. The Silver Pines Alpha was everything Silas was not: patient, fiercely protective, deeply respectful. Each time Liam entered the room, Nora's lingering bone-deep aches inexplicably retreated, replaced by a warm, steady hum that settled behind her ribs. Late on the 3rd night, Nora stood alone on Liam's rustic balcony, watching moonlight pool across the forest canopy. She wore a soft, oversized wool sweater he'd given her, a world apart from the scratchy servant uniforms of her former life. Liam murmured from the doorway, carrying 2 steaming mugs of chamomile tea. Nora answered, turning to face him. Liam closed the distance between them, held out a mug. The instant their fingers brushed, a violent jolt of electricity crackled through her skin. Nora gasped softly. His storm-gray eyes locked onto hers. The connection was undeniable. A magnetic pull, ancient and absolute. The unbreakable thread of fated mates. __, quote, _69__. Liam's voice dropped to a whisper. I knew the exact moment you poured that water. My wolf recognized his ultimate other half. But you are entirely free here. Nora, I will not push you, not after a lifetime of stolen choices. Hot tears of sheer relief burned behind her eyes. Silas won't let this go, her voice steadied. My existence alone makes his claim over the Black Ridge pack completely illegitimate. Liam's jaw hardened. Quote, 73__. Nora's fingers tightened around her mug until every knuckle bleached white. Silas was prepared to ignite a full-scale pack war, slaughter innocent wolves, all to keep a throne that was never his. The fiery beast coiled inside her chest, dormant for days, snapped awake with a vengeful, thunderous roar. He won't spill one more drop of innocent blood because of me. Nora's eyes flared, blazing, molten gold. Quote, 75__. The contested borderland between the 2 packs cut a ragged scar through ancient Douglas firs. Midnight air hung thick with the metallic promise of a coming thunderstorm. Silas Norton stood at the clearing's edge, 50 heavily armed enforcers fanned behind him. Every one of them bore bruises from the last encounter. Every one of them reeked of humiliation. The arrogance Silas usually wore like armor had cracked. What leaked through was something far more dangerous: raw,
cornered desperation. "Liam Blackwood!" His voice tore blind and ragged into the dark. "Surrender the Hastings girl now, and I'll let your miserable pack live!" Liam did not answer. No one answered. Instead, a single figure slipped from the deep shadows. Nora stepped into the wash of pale moonlight, unarmed, unhurried. Wind caught her dark hair and flung it sideways. Her golden eyes burned like twin suns carved into the pitch-black wall of forest behind her. "You want me, Silas?" Her voice rolled through the canyon, amplified by something ancient stirring beneath her ribs. The rightful heir, the true bloodline. "Kill her!" Silas screamed. His finger jabbed toward her, shaking violently. Not one enforcer moved. Not a single muscle twitched. Nora's aura detonated outward, a suffocating tidal wave of pure alpha dominance that crashed across the clearing like a hurricane flattening dry grass. Black Ridge enforcers crumbled where they stood, knees hit dirt, spines folded. Their primal instincts recognized what their conscious minds refused to accept: the scent of their ancestral ruler. She took one step forward, another step. Her growl dropped to a frequency that vibrated in the marrow. Silas saw his men, useless, trembling heaps on the ground. A furious howl ripped from his throat as he shifted. His hulking dark brown wolf launched forward, jaws snapping, aimed squarely at her exposed throat. Nora didn't flinch. She leapt. The transformation was instantaneous. Midair, the fragile human woman dissolved. What landed was something else entirely: a colossal wolf, impossibly massive. Fur so deeply midnight black it swallowed the moonlight whole. Golden eyes blazing with ethereal righteous fury. The true alpha had awakened. Silas slammed into her full force. It was a stray dog hurling itself against a mountainside. Nora absorbed the impact without shifting an inch. One terrifying snarl, then her fangs sank deep into his scruff. Not to kill, to dominate. She hoisted the false alpha clean off the mud and drove him into the earth, with a violence that shuddered through the ancient trunks surrounding them. He thrashed, bucked, twisted wildly. Nora planted one massive paw square on his heaving chest and pressed him flat. She lowered her glowing golden eyes until they hovered inches from his wide, terrified amber gaze, and unleashed a roar that rattled the teeth of every wolf within 10 miles. It was not a challenge. It was a divine command. Absolute, unyielding. Submit. Under the crushing physical weight and the sacred pressure of her bloodline, Silas Norton broke completely. His wolf whimpered, small, pathetic, gutted of everything it had pretended to be. His tail tucked tight, his throat bared in unconditional surrender. A collective gasp swept the clearing like wind through dead leaves. Every Black Ridge enforcer pressed their foreheads to the dirt. From the opposite tree line, Liam, Caleb, and the entire Silver Pines pack emerged, and dropped to their knees in stunned, unified reverence. Nora released Silas, shifted fluidly back to her human form. Liam was beside her in a heartbeat. A heavy coat wrapped around her trembling shoulders. She sagged against his broad chest, anchored by the steady drum of his heart beneath her ear. "It's done," she whispered. Her brilliant golden eyes dimmed slowly, settling back into warm, quiet brown. The false king's reign was finished. The silent Omega servant had reclaimed her stolen crown through the undeniable authority of her blood. Two packs united under fated mates would finally see a new dawn. Nora had spent 10 agonizing years in the dust. Tonight, she owned the stars. If this story left you breathless, hit the like button and share it with anyone who craves werewolf drama. Subscribe for more stories like this and drop a comment below. Until next time.